By July of that year, I was on life support. I was placed in a medical coma that I didn't awaken from for 38 days, placed on a vent. I couldn't sit up. I couldn't do anything. I had an estate plan. I had management in place. My businesses continued to run. He and his brother are the executors of my estate. You never know. So people come in, they might be in their 80s, 70s, or 80s. Well, we're not sick. We're doing okay. And then I'm like, so do I look healthy? And they're like, yeah, you do. And then I said I almost died in 21. I was on life support, multiple life support machines. They're like, okay, we need to do our pre-need plan right now.
Don't waste any time. Yeah. Welcome to In Good Company, Elder Care in Your Backyard.
Today, we're joined by Dr. Ruth Ann Wood-Humiston and Gabe Humiston from Walnut Lawn Funeral Home in Springfield, Missouri. Dr. Ruth Ann is a second-generation owner and licensed funeral director for over 35 years of experience, carrying on her family's legacy of tender moments, tender care. Her son, Gabe, Walnut Lawn's general manager, represents the third generation in the family business. Together, they continue a long-standing tradition of compassion, professionalism, and family-centered service. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We're so glad you're here, Ruth Ann and Gabe. Today we're here to plan my funeral. We're going to go through the whole thing. No, just kidding. But we do want to kind of dig in because I think it's a little mysterious for some people, and we just want to kind of dispel some of that mystery. Let them know that planning a funeral can actually, especially planning it in advance, could be more about living than death in some ways for some people. And I kind of believe in that. We talk about hospice a lot on the show. And I'm a great believer that the more you face those things and talk about them, talk about what your wishes are, and in all aspects, whether that's medical wishes or, everything else that comes with, powers of attorney and estate planning and that sort of thing. And funerals would fall into that same category. That the more you talk about that, the more you pre-plan, it takes stress away from family. And it also helps you realize that life's short and if you better get to it and enjoy it as much as you can, and that's the way I take it at least. So I don't know how unusual this situation is, but you being a second generation and Gabe, you being the third generation coming in, how unusual is it for this setup in today's world?
Actually, it's pretty common in the funeral business for families to step in and take over. And actually, I'm an educator by trade. Okay. So I grew up in the business. And then when I was 18, I moved out. So I've actually had over more than 35 years, actually about 57.
Wow.
So
Fair enough.
I learned how to walk, dusting caskets. I learned how to drive, putting the cars around because we had a large parking lot. Just some of those things, and help my dad and mom and dad assist with funerals starting at 14. So
wow.
But educator by trade. But about 12 years ago, they needed to retire, and so I stepped in to allow them to do that. And then when Gabriel's kind of grown up around the business too, and has helped me actually as an administrative assistant starting out with there. And so he's learned the business, and now he has moved up to the general management position.
Wow.
So Gabe, what was your first experiences with the family business?
Kind of the same. It was doing here and there tasks and washing vehicles, taking flower pictures, anything I could do. Maintenance was a big thing. And I just kept getting closer and closer to the day-to-day thing and kind of moved on up, got the license to do pre-arrangements and things. So it just kind of all came together and found my spot.
That's awesome. So what are the biggest myths around what people are surprised about the funeral business?
We're not scary. When they come in, especially when they pre-plan with us, or sometimes when people have passed away and they've met with us, they're like, this wasn't that hard after all. So you don't talk about it a lot. It's just not an open conversation because it's your life and it's the end of your life. So you have hospice, and then, after hospice, when they pass away, then we kind of take over. But even with pre-need planning, I like to tell people, and we get it out on social media and all that, we're not scary. come in, have a bottle of water, cup of coffee, if that's what you want, and just talk to us. What you want to do to celebrate your life. And we all have, it's a short amount of time, but we have a whole life that we need to celebrate and everything too. And those services are for the living as well. So we have heard people say and regret not doing funerals and services for their loved ones and to celebrate them. Mm-hmm. So that is very, very important in our opinion. We're in the business, but we have seen people come to terms with that loss. So
right. So you're speaking about closure.
Yes.
And you have to, people deal with that closure in a lot of different ways. What are ways that you help people walk through that, since it's so unique to each person?
We personalize the services. So one of the first things that we go in, of course, the introductions, getting to know people, just seeing who they are and getting to know them that way and who their loved one is. And then we move into, how do we celebrate your loved one? How do you see that happening? And we help guide people. And being an educator, I educate people too. And just put information out there, because a lot of people don't understand. They think they might, but you can compare it to like a wedding. If you've ever planned a wedding, it takes a while. Well, with funeral services, usually it could be 2 to 3 days. It could be 6 weeks or so, just depending if they're cremated or traditional burial. But we have the experience and to get it all together. The vendors, the services, military honors, just whatever. That's what we do. So we help people lead them. So we have unique services. I had a family come to me. They had a little one pass away. We did a birthday party to heaven for the little one. Wow. And the older sister, wasn't very old, but she remembers that. So when she comes by our place, she always tells her mom and dad, that's where we had the birthday party to heaven for my brother. Oh, so it's just, that was just very, very unique. They brought in balloons and celebrated the little one, and he went to heaven.
Oh, that's super sweet. So jumping back, how did this all begin? What's kind of the origin story for Walnut Lawn?
For our family? Mm-hmm. So I grew up in Hartville, which is about an hour east of here. Very small town. My dad grew up there too, but he started helping the local funeral home owner, like mowing the yard, and then mowing the yard. He said, come and come and wash the vehicles, come dressed up, help us, just different ways. So my dad was first generation in the funeral business, just very interested. He moved on to Springfield, went and completed his prerequisites at Southwest Missouri State at that time, and then became an ambulance driver.
Oh, wow.
While he was going through school. And that's where he met my mom, who was going to nursing school at St. John's back then. Yeah. And so they got together, got married, and then he went to school in Dallas. And they were down there in his, and he was going to mortuary school when President Kennedy was actually assassinated. And my dad actually bought his books out of the book depository where the shooter was.
Wow.
So now we go
right
down.
I've
taken them, and I'm like, this is where Papa bought his books for mortuary school, in this building, and it's a museum now.
Yeah.
So some history and all that too. But I learned at a very young age how to talk to people, how to growing up in the business. It was a lot of respect. And just being there for people. My parents in Hartville, they were the people, you respected that. You had to be on your best behavior because they knew who you were and everything too. But in 1989, my youngest sister was getting ready to graduate from high school. I was already in Springfield going to school. My older brother, he was around here too, I think somewhere. But anyway, instead of just being there, my dad had some health issues also too. So they moved to Springfield to be closer to doctors. And my dad built the Walnut Lawn Funeral Home building itself. Wow. And so they ran that. They were just a little younger than I am now and came up here and worked hard. And they're They wanted to give high quality customer service and be there for people. And so we have the small town values, the personal family. Like when you come into our funeral home, you actually meet with us. And many times I'll seat people and ask them if they want water and who they're there for. And I'll introduce myself and they're like, yeah, we know you. We've seen you on TV and all that too.
Yeah.
So, but I'm right there. And somebody was even surprised the other day that I answered the phone. They're like, you don't get that with owners very often.
No.
So I'm very accessible and all that. So went to college, educator, teacher, principal, all of that over the years. And then I actually had an early childhood center that I opened for him. I didn't have his younger brother then at the time. So I was doing that, but my parents needed us to step in. And it was about 12 years ago that we did that. And then I just brought him along. Actually, someone that worked for me at the time, he said, what about Gabriel coming in and I'll work with him and teach him how to sell pre-needs. And so it's been that way ever since. So he's our lead pre-need person at the funeral home.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I want to hear a sales pitch here just a second, but I want to stay on the family tradition part of this. And you said access to ownership is really challenging. A lot of people don't get to experience that, which I think is extremely unique. You did mention that family funeral business is really common. But one of the things that I've heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard that a lot of these family businesses are starting to sell out to other companies, bigger companies. Have you heard that?
There has been some sellout, and that's kind of happened in Springfield. Just to be honest, corporations have a difficult time doing business in Springfield. So there is one corporately owned, well, they own a funeral home and some cemeteries in Springfield. They use the family name and they have, service the pre-needs and all that family had done before. And so there's been some consolidation and all that. But one of the largest corporations in the United States has tried to come to Springfield, and they're no longer in Springfield.
Yeah. So what are the challenges? Why do you think it doesn't work for big corporations?
Probably the family aspect. I mean, we live here. Springfield was actually like our second home anyway, because we always came up for the doctors and everything. But I raised them in Republic. He graduated from Republic High School. He's gone to college. So is his younger brother that takes care of Cherish Pets. So we're part of the community. We're here.
Right.
And some of those corporate employees, yeah, they're here too, but the buck stops with me. So people can get a hold of me if there's a question or whatever. Plus, I'm right there. This is my business and my reputation.
Yeah.
So you don't get that too much with corporate.
No, we see it in the healthcare business a lot. As a matter of fact, we're one of the few left that do home health, hospice, and home care that aren't owned by some outside entity. And that's one of the things that we like to zero in on, especially on this podcast, is how local ownership makes a big difference. And, we get somebody reaching out to us pretty much on a weekly basis interested in trying to buy us out. But I know what that means. There's a lot of things that will change once that happens. Have you noticed the same thing? Have you had companies reaching out to you on a regular basis?
We have.
Yeah.
We have. Just because of, various factors, but it's kind of interesting. We get phone calls, some out of state. I got a phone call out of Montana about a year ago or whatever. They're watching us. And it's just really fun.
Ooh, yeah.
And we actually, on our pet funeral home, it's just now a year old. A large company has come in and made an offer. And I've told them flat out, you're not the same as what we do here and for the families. And this is why we started our pet funeral home.
Yeah.
So
could you talk about some of the family differences that you guys offer? Like what makes you guys stand out versus the corporations?
because
se?
we're there.
You're there.
Yeah,
the personability.
we're there. I'm overseeing along with Gabriel. Since he's been general manager, I have a younger team, and it's been wonderful just to watch how they're working together and making improvements and all that. They don't have to go to the higher up headquarters and get approvals from different management, like district managers and all that. I mean, they can come to me and I'm like, hey, that sounds like a great idea. And just since he's been in that role, we have become more efficient. I mean, even technology wise, it's just amazing. And we do work as a team.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So just last week, we've got rid of all of our, not all of them, but most of our desktops because Windows 11 came out and Windows 10 is no longer supported. So we had to upgrade all of that and modernize to like laptops and things, but just making things more efficient, less paper, where we can find things easier and just making life easier. So.
And we've even added just recently too, the way that we honor people that have been cremated. And when their families come in, they may not have a service for them. And so the way that we present that person's remains is different too. And it's honorable. And we do it with candles lit and everything. And we've had very, very positive feedback about that too. So those are some other things too. But people want to complain about the younger generation. I am here to say the younger generation, they have it together. Yeah. I've been very pleased. When I look out and I'm like, oh, now I'm the oldest one here. So
just curious, because I was thinking about this before we got together. I was thinking, sometimes people who are out of state may have difficulty getting back to where their loved one passed away and they're going to have a service. Do you know if there's any services that somehow use like
live streaming?
Yeah. Do you guys do that?
We do.
Oh, that's amazing.
We got really good at it during COVID.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Plus, that's when it started. Plus, we got really good counting to 10 too. All day visitations, counting 10 people off, because you can only have 10 at a time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They allowed us in Missouri to be able to have services and all that too.
Social distancing was a big thing at the beginning, and then we were only allowed 10 people at a time per service. So there was drive-through visitations. We had all-day services, still giving people that opportunity to have a service. But and then the live stream, it was implemented during that time where we can do it through our Facebook page, and it also records and saves on our website. So even though families watched it at the time, they can still go back and have that memory anytime.
So.
Yeah, we use a program called Gather too. So it's I actually just recently did it about 3 weeks ago in a church because they had family that couldn't attend. They lived in Arizona, and then they wanted it recorded too. So it's not only on our website, on the person's obituary page. People from out of state could watch it live, and then we were able to get it in a CD form that they had requested for them too. So it's on the website, if it's like, and it's there. So that's
really cool.
That's the good part. And then we encourage people too with like the Facebook and all that. But Facebook mutes the music, even though we have a music license and all that to use. And the Gather program does not mute the music.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
So that all came about because of the pandemic, or did you already have plans for that prior to pandemic?
We did just like Facebook.
Facebook, it got more in depth since we had more that we had wanted to offer. We wanted to look into how we could better do it. So that's when Gather came around.
Any other technology things that you want to touch on related to
services and everything?
Services, yeah.
Yeah, people want to do more technology things. And so we're like moving around. And we've upgraded in the past few years, upgraded our system. But I remind families sometimes too, we're not a big production company, a theater, we're a funeral home. But we do, we use Spotify a lot too to play music. Mm-hmm. And we don't have as many live musicians, vocalists anymore. They just don't do it. I used to sing at lots of funerals too when I was a kid.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, because we didn't have the technology we do now. And I like to say Alan Jackson comes quite a bit and sings at our funeral home. And they just look at me and I'm like, well, he's on Spotify.
Yeah.
And so we have that, but videos, we do a tribute video also that the families get. And we have a really good software program. And it's really easy and personalized and all of that too. So we have that goes on our website too. But just, that's a lot of it. We personalize even our memorial folders and all of that too for the person because they're blank. Right. And we'll do what the family wants or something that they like too. Mm-hmm. So they might like the Denver Broncos. So we do a whole theme. Being an educator, I like themes. So I do a whole Denver Bronco theme.
Okay.
To do those things. Even on the urn to engrave that on the urn. My youngest son does the engraving for us too.
Wow. It is really
I was going to say some of the
very integrated family.
So what are some of the services on site that you guys offer? So that's one of them that you actually do yourself.
Yeah, we do the engraving. We can do metal engraving and wood engraving, so both machines. All of our cremations happen on site, so our own retort, and we are actually the ones overseeing that. So as crematory operators,
and that's kind of unusual, right? Like there's not a lot of other providers that do that.
Well, there are some, but some companies, I'll just say that, they don't have their own machine. So somebody else is overseeing their cremations. I am very strict about it with identification, but we don't require the family. There's other ways that we can do it because it is very upsetting sometimes to families to see their loved one. So they don't have to ID, but there's certain ways that we make sure that happens. But one of the things that I require, and this is above and beyond what the state requires. And actually, they've commended us on our process. But I require a licensed funeral director and an assistant, 2 people. And actually, that assistant is probably also licensed, but they oversee every single cremation. And our retort, my dad put it in about 14, 15 years ago. And it's in our building. We oversee it all the time. Now, our pet one's different. It's in a different building as per state regulations. But we have the human one. We operate that. And I'm a certified crematory operator, and mainly that's administrative and all that too.
So you go above and beyond on that. What happens if some other company doesn't go above and beyond? What goes wrong?
There's a lot of hoops that they could jump through. So the main thing is your loved one is traveling all over the town, wherever it might be. So one of them is not even in Springfield. It's out on the outskirts. So funeral homes that use that company, your loved one travels, around. So
around Springfield, around the outer parts of area, if they may have one location that everybody goes to. But usually on the identification and the funeral director, it's the funeral director that's taking care of that family. And that is another key thing. Once you have made connection with one of our funeral directors, most likely you're going to work with that funeral director. You're not a number. Because we've called other places and corporations out of state. And I said, who does the family need to ask for? Well, we haven't assigned a funeral director yet.
Yeah.
So now we can't always do everything. And so we hand them off. We introduce them. It's just respect and all of that too. But yeah, other people are doing those cremations. That business owner is not overseeing that.
Yeah.
So I'm right there. If there's an issue with that retort, he either goes back, I go back, I can monitor it. We know how to operate it. So.
Yeah. Can I switch to pre-planning?
Yeah.
Can you walk me through, I'm new coming in, I had somebody, or maybe I'm planning for myself. I'm just like, I'm wanting to go down this road so my family doesn't have to worry about it. What are some things that you cover with them?
Yeah, so basically we can complete everything ahead of time as far as authorizations, government forms, anything pertaining to your funeral. The only thing we can't do is set a date and time for any services, but that can be done at the time of need. But we like to complete everything ahead of time. That way your family potentially doesn't even have to come in and do that at the time of need. It's all laid out and it's a clear plan that we follow, but it can always have changes made to it. But we take exactly what you would like to do today and do a pre-arrangement contract with either burial insurance or trust. And that freezes our prices, and we're flexible on payment. We can do payment plans. Works just like a car payment, I like to say too. So it's very simple and easy. And the main benefit about it is if we do a payment plan too, it's a fixed payment for a fixed amount of time. Traditional life insurance, you could possibly pay for it until the day you might pass away. Outside of that, then it's paid off. You don't have to worry about it anymore. So everything is taken care of, and all of that.
If somebody comes, like if I come in and I'm like, I want to pre-plan a funeral, and let's say I do kind of what a lot of people do. What are those things? Because to be honest, I've never planned a funeral. I have no idea what goes into it and all the details that you guys deal with every day in and day out. And you probably think, well, everybody knows that, but I promise you none of them do.
You are a perfect example of what we work with every single day.
Okay, perfect.
And literally we're there to walk you through everything. So pre-need planning is the same well, it's not the same because you're actually alive and you are planning your services and paying for them. What we call at need is when somebody has passed away. And when someone passes away, I can give you an example. My dad actually passed away over a year ago. And I've been in the business all my life. Now, my manager at the time did direct his funeral, as colleagues are like, let them take care of everything for you. I was numb. I was in shock. And after his funeral, I can't even tell you if we had music at his funeral. That's one of the things with the memorial folder. I can look back and see, what we had and the plan and everything too. But you're in shock, you're grieving. Fortunately, I talked to my parents about what they wanted. So I kind of knew already.
So they hadn't pre-planned.
No. And so, okay, so here's a funny. So when I stepped in, I asked them, I am like, so are your pre-plans here? And my mom's like, nope. And I'm like, okay, so my mom's not from where we grew up, where my dad grew up and everything. So in those small towns, you kind of feel like an outsider sometimes too. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to take you. My dad's side of the family is laid to rest at Little Creek Cemetery in Wright County. And I said, well, we're just going to take you to Little Creek then. And she goes, I'll haunt you the rest of your life. then the next thing I know, my dad goes down and buys plots, I think in 2 rows or 1 row. He comes back and I'm like, well, I guess you're going to Wright County. And she goes, yeah, I am. So they did that. I also found some papers as I have been taking care of their estate and all that and helping them the last few years. My mom had written down some things also. So we talk nationally about having a talk of a lifetime. So not formally, maybe sitting down, but sitting around, holidays are coming up, and you might just catch some things that they're talking about or something that they saw at a recent funeral or whatever that they really like. And we get people like that too. But people just like saying exactly what you did. You've never done this before. This is new. And it's scary because you haven't done it before. So we take you through just sitting and talking just like what we're doing now. And then sometimes people tell us exactly what they want. So, we give them different options. We do have our general price list according to the Federal Trade Commission. So we have that.
Packages.
We do packages because they're a lot easier and you don't feel nickeled and dimed with that. But as far as planning merchandise, if you want a traditional burial with a casket, you can choose your casket. If you want cremation, you can choose your urn. You can choose the book products that you want, the stationery. You can do that. You can choose, tell us the music you want, the minister that you would like to have. Now, that minister may not be alive when you pass away, and that's okay. And we even have parents come in and they're like, well, my son and daughter are going to take my remains. And I said, what if you outlive them? Oh, we ask quite often, since we were coined named the Veterans Funeral Home for this area because we do so many veteran services. One of the questions exactly today on a phone call, I'm like, are either of you a veteran? Yeah, my husband is. And I'm like, have you considered being laid to rest at Missouri Veterans Cemetery? No, we didn't know. And I said, it doesn't cost you or your spouse anything, as long as you have a discharge paper and all that. They're like, oh, so it's leading them through that. Some even write their obituaries and we leave out the date and time. But I wanted to mention on the time, sometimes they said, we are an afternoon person. Grandma always took her drives at 2:00. Literally had this last week. We're going to do the service at 2:00. All right, we'll do that. And some other things that, family would talk about a loved one, that she would go get an ice cream cone at McDonald's and then go flea market shopping. We asked for permission first, but we took the funeral processional around McDonald's before we went to the cemetery. So we do little things like that to remember and make it personable. But we get all that. And we say with the pre-need planning, we're your voice. This is here. Even if we're not here, it's all laid out here of what you want. Yeah. Because once you pass away, you don't have a say much anymore. Yeah. So we have it all in writing, and you can sign the cremation authorization documents too yourself. It's allowable by law, but we do cover that with the family. Because when someone passes away and we put that authorization right in front of them, that's when we see them break down. So it's hard. Yeah. Plus, they can freeze the prices. We can get how many death certificates you want. We get all the vital information for the death certificates too. So it's a little bit lighter doing pre-needs too. People might be a little nervous, but once we're done, they're smiling, go, you made this easy. And ultimately, I guess for me, I don't know if he gets it. He might get the older ladies pinching his cheeks. But, we've done a good job when we get hugs. Yeah. And handshakes. The hugs and all that have come back now from COVID. Yeah. So, and we're honored to be there for people.
It's very personal, isn't it?
It is. It is. And we even have a program after, especially for people who've lost their loved ones. We have a Live Well program. So we host different activities once a month that they can get together, meet others, and just get out and kind of start the next chapter in their life.
Kind of like for grieving widows or widowers, that sort of thing.
Yeah, or new people to this area. So some of your nursing homes have their events and everything. Well, some of these people aren't in nursing homes. And their spouse was their life. Yeah. And just like when we're in school or job, we network and all that. When we're older and it's just you and your spouse passes away, then you're lost. Mm-hmm. So I started Live Well several years ago, actually around COVID. So it didn't, but they just went to the pumpkin patch last week, I think. Yep. They go to the berry farms, they go just get together.
So how can you join that program?
It's free. You can just, there is a form on our website and submit it. And we have a Facebook page and we send out emails telling about the next activity. So it's 55 and over, Live Well, Silver and Gold Club.
That's cool.
It's fun.
I assume that since this is so personal, like generational, and this might not be a good question, but generationally, you might see a change over time, like what some people wanted to do, 30 years ago is starting to kind of shift in a different direction today. Have you noticed any changes?
You want to talk on that one?
No, you're older.
I'm older.
Wiser.
Oh, wiser. So growing up, they did primarily traditional services. Cremation was very, very rare. Now we're probably 75 to 80% cremation rate of all the services that we do. But I'm finding now the pendulum is kind of moving back a little bit, that we are including services. So even though they choose cremation as the final disposition, people are wanting services. They still want to celebrate that person, and that's very important. So like my mom is totally against cremation. She wouldn't even write the check to pay for the machine that my dad got. She goes, nope. And she's never even been around to the front. She'll just stop. Being in the business all of her married life, she was like, nope, we're going to do traditional burial. And that's what she does. But then I have a really good friend who is very conscious about the environment. He has one light bulb in his house, and it's hot in the summertime and it's cold in the wintertime. You know, he conserves energy. He's going to be cremated. He wants a smaller footprint, and that's okay too. But both ways, still celebrating somebody's life. So just not doing the direct cremation. And so they'll come in and they're like, we can only afford a direct cremation. But how are you going to celebrate it? We're going to get together at the house. We're going to have a barbecue, and this is what we're going to do. That's perfect. At least they're getting together. They share memories, and they work through that grieving process together.
Is it money driving that trend, or is it just more of a cultural thing, or preventing that footprint, as you said?
It's everything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost everything. Because even if somebody is totally against cremation, they don't have a lot of money or whatever, we help them find that money too, and do crowdfunding just through the funeral home and all that. But we'll work with them. And we have burial packages that don't cost as much. And we can give them options for cemeteries that don't cost as much either.
Okay, that's interesting. So can you speak to kind of the range of cost? Just if you had somebody who doesn't have any money to somebody who's doing quite well, like for your business, like what's the range typically been?
Well, and this is the importance of pre-planning, because I actually walked into a home, the floor was falling through, and I'm like, and this has been several years ago, the house was, it's an older house. And I'm like, probably, they might not have as much money. She pre-planned, and she had a life insurance policy. Wow. And she had a full traditional burial. So she thought about that. And when people, they might say, well, we're only on Social Security. What can we do? Come in. We work with all of that. So even though we might have a package price, and this is going back to how my mom and dad always did business, we'll work with you. So we understand. We know that this is a calling, a higher calling for us to be in this. So it's our ministry too. And we're there for people. So it ranges, and it just depends. And it depends on what kind of services. So you might find a less expensive cremation place, but you're not going to see your loved one. So if you want everybody to get together and see your loved one, it's not going to happen, because that's not what they do.
Right.
So there are different types of services, and we're a full service funeral home.
Well, I think you just described one of the very important points of why ownership matters, and why local family ownership really matters. So when you said that somebody who's on Social Security and you could have them in and work with them, what do you mean by that? Like, what are some of the avenues of somebody's, let's say they're in their 50s and they're like, okay, we're going to pre-plan this. We're on a very fixed income. Like, what are our options?
And we'll talk about that. What's your budget?
Okay.
What can you do?
Okay.
And we can do plans that are specific for that budget. So if you can only pay so much down or so much at a time, we can have a plan where at least you have something in there if something were to happen. It can be used for funeral expense. So kind of it's what you can afford, and a glorified savings account, honestly. But it's just something for protection to have there. But with payment plans too, we can stretch out pre-need payments up to like 10 years. So it will make it very affordable on a monthly basis for people to do that. So.
And that's unique with us. We primarily use burial insurance, and there are insurance protections. It is different than regular term life or whole life insurance, because term life and whole life policies, things that you see on TV, you're paying for that the rest of your life.
Gotcha.
So if you go into the nursing home and you quit paying on that, if it's term life, you're done. You don't get any of that money back. Plus, it has to be 2 years in force. You can't just take it out 6 months ago and think, for grandma that it's going to pay. Nope, you're going to get your premiums back. Wow. And that's hard for people to understand. With our burial insurance, we're the provider. The company that we use was actually started by funeral directors. And so there's the insurance component. I had a lady, I think her payment was $25.
Wow.
She made one payment. She actually got COVID, and it was in the contestable period, of course, because they do have a contestable period as well. They got her medical records, found out she didn't have COVID when she took that out, and they paid it off.
Wow.
They paid it off. So that's your insurance protection. You can make one payment and unfortunately have a car accident. They'll pay it in full. Your family doesn't have to come up with it. The other positive about it, if you decide to move to Florida, you need to be closer to your kids. Now, I will say we can still take care of people who move too. And I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But if you want to move, that policy, 100% of that and all the growth goes. These funeral homes that do trust only, they get to keep a certain percentage, like about 15%, and they get to keep all the growth, all of it. We can't do that with burial insurance. Mm-hmm. And so that is really hard. We actually had a family from out of town. Grandma did pass away in a hospital in Springfield. Her pre-need was actually out of Joplin. And the Joplin people told them to get a local funeral home and that they are keeping 15% in all the growth. I didn't like how the conversation was going with my manager, with the family and what they were telling her. And I said, I don't care how much money is in that pre-need. I'm doing it for whatever's there. And so I called the funeral home. And I said, so money, do you have it in Missouri Funeral Trust or you have your own trust? Oh, no, it's a homesteader's burial insurance policy. And I laughed at him at that point. I said, you can't keep 15% or any of the growth. It comes 100%. He said, and this is where they don't know either many times. He goes, I'm just doing what I'm told, what I was told. And I said, and you don't know about burial insurance. So there are very few of us actually licensed because we're insurance producers. We've taken that extra test. And so we have resources and people who support us with all of that too. We use Funeral Directors Life. But that money's there, it's paid off. Term life, and once it's paid off, it's paid off. Term life, you quit paying on it, you lose it.
Right.
So whole life is another where that has cash value. So we do have people coming, especially when they're on hospice or they're getting ready to go in a nursing home and they need to qualify for state assistance. They're bringing those policies into us and they're like, we need to make this irrevocable, meaning they can't count that as part of their assets. So we can convert those whole life insurance policies where the state can't count it as part of their assets and be able to use that for a pre-need.
Wow. Talk about long distance. You said you're going to mention that.
So long distance. So people will say, I'm going to move with my daughter to Florida or whatever. What do we need to do? Can we move the policy? Well, you can move the policy, but that doesn't mean that funeral home is going to accept it as that, because I get policies with people moving in and I'm like, I can't do this, or I can do this, no problem, and we'll accept it. But I had a situation where parents lived here. Their son actually lived in California. He passed away. They contracted with me, and the family did, and I contracted with somebody in California to take care of him.
Wow.
I've done that in Iowa. So even though, and what it is, if your family actually walks into California funeral home, you're going to pay full price. And when I call them, unless it's corporate, I usually get a trade price. It's a professional trade price. So my prices are less expensive. I meet with the family. They're not supposed to meet with the family or answer any questions. But sometimes I call those corporate ones and I'm like, so what is your trade price for a cremation? And they take it right off their general price list. And I'm like, do you want to go talk to somebody about that? Nope, that's what we're going to do. I'm like, okay, thank you very much. And then I start looking for those family owned ones because they do. You know, I worked with a company in St. Louis and I have someone up there right now and they're like, this is your trade price because you have helped us too.
Wow.
So it's the professional respect and everything out there.
So I think you've highlighted maybe your fifth thing related to why you go to a family owned, why ownership matters, why going to the corporate owned is a mistake, and watching out who owns that.
Well, it may not be a mistake, but you just get, when you work, like when you walk in, you're going to see us. Now, all family owned ones, sometimes you don't meet with families or meet with the owners either. So, but we actually work in it every single day. Like if there's a call in the middle of the night, you're getting me this week, you know, returning the call back to you in the middle of the night.
Well, one of the things, I mean, we talk about this just in our own business all the time because we're like, my wife and I have worked here and had this business for 15 years now. We run into people who have been on our home health or hospice or home care, recognize us, and we take it personal. We really do. We take it very personal if somebody has a bad experience, you know. So it makes a difference. It really does. It is about self-respect. It is about taking pride in your work and that sort of thing. And although you're very diplomatic about, you know, being careful to say it's not a blanket statement that all corporate owned companies are necessarily bad, but unfortunately the person who is sitting down across the table from somebody who's going through something difficult is not the one who's ultimately making the decision. And that's where I think we dehumanize some of these companies and they become too much business, too much about profit, not as much about people. And that's why we're enjoying this conversation so much, I think, because you really have highlighted some things. Let me circle back because you gave a nice warning by saying, look out for this, look out for that, look out for this. Let me put a bow on that by asking a simple question. If you were to advise somebody the best way to insure with insurance, what is the best route for them to go, in your opinion?
Burial insurance. Burial insurance, we have to be you have to be connected with a funeral home. So
guaranteed. It gives you the flexibility of the payment plans. It's transferable. We could even add travel plans to it. So if you were traveling, something were to happen, we can ensure you get back here. So just a lot of flexibility with the burial insurance, and a lot of everything's guaranteed and protected for you.
Because I can't freeze the prices for term or whole life.
Right.
Because the burial insurance is going to continue growing. So they invest that, it continues to grow. That's why we can freeze the prices. Now, I want to mention, because it recently came out about 6 to 8 weeks ago, about national prearranged services, because people are getting refund checks or whatever. And actually, we met with the lady that was on KY3. She came in and did her pre-need with us and worked with her through that process. Insurance companies now in the state of Missouri have to pay into a fund. And so when they do that, if that insurance company goes out of business, state of Missouri will step in and make sure your money that you've paid in is there. So that is one difference than when National Prearranged Services was actually operational in the Springfield area, St. Louis area. My dad was instrumental and one of the leaders in the state to rewrite and overturn a lot of the pre-need laws. So he did that in addition to, operating a funeral home and everything. But he saw a problem And he worked with many leaders out of Jefferson City and got new laws. And it's pretty strict with the pre-need laws in the state of Missouri. So your money's protected.
That's really good. So if somebody came in to, let's say, a funeral home and they're like, I need burial insurance, are there any other questions they need to ask to make sure they're actually getting the right insurance? Because they're not being said, oh, yeah, this is burial insurance, but they're getting something different?
Well, it should be on the contracts like what we have. It actually says where that money's going. So if we use Missouri Funeral Trust if we need to. It
Missouri
just depends on, that's the trust company we use. Other funeral homes have their own trust, but we still are accountable to the state. We're audited. They actually come down and look at our files. We have to do annual reports, all of that. But we use Missouri Funeral Trust if we need to. If somebody are like, well, I've heard about the insurance, I don't want insurance. Okay. So we can do Missouri Funeral Trust. And I have, with Missouri Funeral Trust, I don't have as much flexibility with that to freeze the prices and when things can be paid off. But with like Funeral Directors Life, they have to be affiliated with a certain insurance company. So Funeral Directors Life, they've accepted us. I have written for homesteaders before, but there's a reason why we work with Funeral Directors Life because of more of the benefits that we work with that we couldn't get through homesteaders. He used to work right for NGL. As an owner, I had some questions about how they pay out and everything too, and the hoops we had to jump through. And I'm like, okay, no, we're going back to FDLIC, and that's who we primarily use right now.
Okay.
For burial insurance.
For burial insurance.
For burial insurance.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
But you should be able to ask. I'll just tell you one other funeral home may sell burial insurance. May. I don't know if they still do or not. But we're primarily the ones that you're going to get burial insurance from. Wow. And then you also, even funeral directors, different companies like homesteaders and all that, they will hire pre-need agents who have no experience in the funeral business, and they'll just have them go out and sell burial plans. They're not going to be as thorough as like what we work with at-need families, pre-need families. We meet with families every day, and we know exactly what helps families with the pre-need planning. So you have to be aware of that too.
So what can go wrong if they run into an inexperienced agent or
they don't
director?
know a lot. Your plans, you might, as an example, so when your loved one passes away and you walk in as a family and you go, my grandma had everything paid off. We start looking through that. No, she didn't. They left this off, this off, this off. And there are some that it's pretty competitive and they'll purposely leave those things off and you think you're having those. Unfortunately, I probably shouldn't have said that, but it does happen. And we want to be open and honest. They might leave off the setup for the gravesite. So they may not have the lowering device. They may have left off the outer burial container. They may have left off the opening and closing costs, which we can't freeze opening and closing costs because it's what we consider a cash advance along with taxes and death certificates. But we can estimate it and know where they're going to be laid to rest and what those charges will be. But they might leave those off. They might leave off honorariums. They might leave off the taxes.
Flowers.
Oh my goodness.
All of that.
That's
thousands
and when you're
thousands
in the middle
of
that,
dollars.
They're not going to think of that stuff. They're not going to know any about it. I didn't know. I just learned it just now.
Did you?
So you said that it has been shifting more towards cremation, but shifting back to cremation with a funeral. How does that look different in any way? And is the cost significantly different?
With cremation, we can still do all of the same type services, even if you would like to have a casket. we can still do the embalming process, have a rental casket is what we call it, and a full traditional service with visitation. Afterwards, the only difference is we go to the crematory rather than the cemetery and complete that process. So there is some options with that. There is some considerable cost difference just because your cemetery charges aren't necessarily included. We don't have to necessarily opt into those because it is the cremation. So like your opening and closing of your grave can range anywhere from, $600 to $1,000. I had one today that was $1,800 in St. Louis. So the cremation can definitely lower that cost just because of the cemetery charges and things. But also because of your casket, we don't have to purchase a big casket. It's a urn, and we have rental caskets that are included in our packages already. So what's included there too.
My father wanted to be cremated. My stepmother had passed away years before, and she had been cremated, and he still had her ashes. And so his final wishes were that he be buried, he be cremated, and they be buried together with a plot in the hometown that they were from. How often do you see that happen?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. There are more options, and this is what I learned 12 years ago when I walked in, just in casket choices and the personalization. So you do cremation. We even have, now we can't cremate pets with humans. We can't do that. We can cremate them separately in their respective, like the pet funeral home and the human funeral home, but we can combine those remains. We put lots of remains in caskets. Lots of remains. Sometimes they want the remains like commingled, and we can do that too. So that is allowable because pets are part of everyone's family. They were there, loyal, and,
right.
and all of that too. But just the options. You can have direct cremation. We highly encourage people to think through where they're going to lay them to rest. What is the plan? Instead of saying, my daughter's going to take them home. Okay, when you pass away, what's going to happen? Well, they're going to take, okay, so let's think through. Where do you want to be laid to rest? Just wherever, and so we help them think through this because sometimes those remains, which has happened, they've been left in rental houses, and we get calls from Fulton Police Department that your label is on this set of remains. Can you find the family? Remains have been in those drop boxes. Just all,
Wow.
that people just forget about them, or just so it's important we think it's important to lay them to rest someplace, right, and to remember them, because we're talking nationally that we have a lost generation because people are being cremated and there's no place marker of where they're actually laid to rest anymore.
Wow.
So the genealogy and all of that. And so people, even obituaries, people find their relatives, they might be adopted, and they're trying to find their biological family. And I know somebody that didn't find his biological family until his late 50s. He looked at obituaries. He tracked them through that with Ancestry.com, the obituaries, and there's Find a Grave to find where people are laid to rest.
Yeah.
So that's, and the argument nationwide is we're losing a generation. Because we don't know where they're laid to rest anymore. And to give them honor, that's our permanent place.
Wow.
But just so many options. Just like Gabriel said, we could do a traditional service, cremation afterwards. We can do a family viewing. We can do witness cremations. We can do a full service. We can do visitations. We can just do a memorial service. We can even do green burials. So
What's a green burial?
So a green burial pretty much is that the person is not embalmed. And depending on their religion, they may be just wrapped in a shroud. We have an actual large casket. And so it'd be placed directly on the ground. And the thought is that they'll go back to the earth.
Okay.
The only problem is most of these cemeteries require an auto burial container because they bring in the heavy equipment. And if they just have a green burial, that grave is going to start collapsing in over time.
Okay.
And if they bring in that big equipment to dig a grave for somebody else, then that's dangerous too. So what they would do in that case is we flip the concrete liner. And so we have the concrete liner, but the person is actually next to the ground.
Wow.
So, and that they'll go back to the ground. There are some green burial places I've heard now around St. Louis, but the one that we were using here after we did one of those burials are like, we're requiring outer burial containers now.
Yeah.
So, but there are other options besides cremation and, ultimately it would be cremation, but people can donate their body to science. Of course, they can be donors too. So if you pass away in a hospital, you're going through the donation process to see if you qualify. And if you qualify, they're going to reach out to your family for permission. There's even a criminal farm, a research farm, and one's in Tennessee, I believe. And they accept people who have passed away, and it helps study crime. So they'll put them in different situations and see how the decomposition process, and they'll track the timing and everything else. So they're doing research. It's a body farm. It's called a body farm. So there's that.
Yeah, I never heard of that myself.
Yeah, I hadn't either. And I had a young lady that worked for me that knew about it. And then you can look it up. It's pretty interesting. So that's where they do the research to see how long you've been gone. Because right now, if you pass away and somebody finds you in your home, the time of death is when you're found. And people will call us and okay, but when did they die? Mm-hmm. We can't tell you. Because we don't know. It would be the coroner or a medical examiner. And they might have their ways. There are certain ways you can kind of tell how long someone's been gone. And it depends if the heat's on in the house or it's summertime and the AC's not on. There's just different things.
Yeah.
So.
Boy, this is not an area I thought we were going to go in this podcast at all.
Well,
Surprise!
If you do body donation, we like to use the osteopathic school in Kirksville because it's less expensive for the families. Transportation, they have a program they transport. If you choose St. Louis or MU, you have to pay for transportation to do that. And then they cremate your body afterwards. And in some cases, some schools will send the remains back, and Kirksville will. The other ones, they just place you in a communal garden. So.
Well, I never thought about that. I am grateful for those people because even in my curriculum, we had cadaver labs.
Oh, did you?
And and it was a huge thing that we got to do that hands-on work, and it was very helpful for us. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely neat for sure.
Circling back, what are some of the most common misconceptions you'd like to clear up about funeral planning?
That it's difficult and that we're scary. So we're actually, try to make it as easy as possible, and we laugh and carry on in the arrangement meetings. And I
respectfully.
Yes. Yeah. But like to see happy, smiling faces rather than at the time of need having to go through that process. So makes it easier definitely at the time of need. And we do try to make it as easy as possible. So.
And I will note about what he said. We tell people it's okay to share stories and laugh. It's okay. And that's part of the healing process and remembering them. Yes, we do miss them and they go through those grief stages, but it's because they're like, oh, we laughed. It's okay. You're remembering those good times and those good memories. And that's healing for you too.
Yeah.
But the pre-need, because people, they're coming in. It's like, I don't know if you ever did it in school where you kind of had to write like an obituary about your life and everything. And you're like, okay, this is really kind of morbid. But that's what adults, are coming in and they're planning what they're going to do for their final disposition. What do you want?
Right.
So
right.
I know what my mom wants.
We're really trying to piece pieces of this together because we've had Rachel Fortenberry from Elder Law on to talk about all the legal issues that come up, and We had the Hospice Foundation for Outreach on just last week, as a matter of fact, and they they're trying to make it more accessible, and so they have this bucket list +1 program that it's kind of for young people too. It talks about what to do with your social media and different things like that. And some people might roll their eyes and like, why do I have to do this? But it is important that people, as a culture, I think that we start talking about mortality more, and it not be this big, taboo thing, because I think some people, they think they're protecting people from it, but I think it's just the opposite. What happens is it makes it more traumatizing for people, and they have a much harder time grieving because they haven't learned that it's just part of life.
If you don't plan, we have seen people come in, there is not a plan. The checking accounts aren't set up with the kids' names or anything. They're shut down. If that bank knows, then they're shutting down that account. You have to have a death certificate. Well, we require payment up front. So, we have to work, with that and everything. But I can give you a personal example. So in 2021, I thought I was fine except for a hurt shoulder. Now, I was a single mom for 10 years, raising the 2 boys. I had multiple businesses, and I had heard my parents talk about estate planning and trusts. So thinking ahead, and he didn't like it, but I have term life insurance because that's what I could afford. 2021, by July of that year, I was on life support.
Oh my gosh.
What happened?
Well, it's a story, but I was placed on life support. I was what took me in was a hurt shoulder. I had an MRI. They found cancer. So treated cancer for 2 days. That's the only chemo that I have ever received. And then within about a week and a half or so, I got the Delta virus that came through from Branson. So I had COVID pneumonia. I went downhill pretty fast and went to the hospital, Cox. There were no rooms. And they're like, we're going to have to send you someplace else, but you're going to have to be admitted. My oxygen level was low. So they sent me to MU to the research hospital, and they actually did research on me. So within 10 days of quarantine, to be out of quarantine, I was placed in a medical coma that I didn't awaken from for 38 days, placed on a vent. During that time, I was placed on ECMO twice. They took me off of it. They saw me panting, and they talked to the doctors, my family did, and they're like, what about ECMO a second time? They'd never done that up there with anybody. It was a Hail Mary. I survived. I was in ICU about 2 months. I was at select specialty for about 10, 14 days. They sent me home because every time the doctor came in, I'm like, can I go home? But since I was in a medical coma, I had severe muscle atrophy. I couldn't sit up. I couldn't do anything. And my kidneys also shut down. So I was on dialysis during that time too. So you know what ECMO is?
No.
So that is where usually when you have a transplant, they bypass either your heart or lungs with that. And they clean out your blood, oxygenate it, and put it back in your body. I was 100% vent and 100% ECMO. I was not a candidate for a lung transplant because they talked about it because I had cancer. I had lymphoma. Since I have gotten out, it took me a year to go back to work full time. Since I've been out since 2021, they have not been able to find cancer. I was stage 3, maybe stage 4. I saw the MRI, and it was pretty bad. So even my oncologist is like, I can't explain this. Talk to my colleague in St. Louis and all that. So he was 20 years old. My youngest was a senior in high school. I had an estate plan. I had management in place. My businesses continued to run.
Wow.
And he was working at the funeral home then. he found out that he thought he wanted to run the business someday, and then he goes, no, no. But
A lot more went into it than I thought at 20 years old.
we celebrated his 21st birthday when I was in Select Specialty. They let him bring a cake in, and family was at the window. And they let him take it out, which they weren't supposed to do, but, to let them do it. But his 21st birthday, I was in the hospital at Select Specialty.
Wow.
I was supposed to walk down the hall so many feet or whatever. No. Now I am walking about 4 to 5 miles a day.
Oh,
That's incredible.
Exercising. While I was on ECMO and the vent, one of the things they could do for me that they can't do when just somebody's on a vent, they cleaned out my lungs. So they scrubbed them and sucked all that stuff out. So I don't have the residual problems that anybody else has. So that was 2021. Had my estate plan. He knew about it. He grabbed it. I had trustees and all that set up, executors of that. And he actually was going to enact it. My mom stepped in and was like, let's hold off. It's running like the people that I had appointed to run the business and all that. It was running. But then when I got out, they got of age. Things kind of, you tweak it. You tweak it as you get older.
Yeah.
So they got of age, and now he and his brother are the executors of my estate. You never know. So people come in, they might be in their 80s, 70s, or 80s. Well, we're not sick. We're doing okay. And then I'm like, so do I look healthy? And they're like, yeah, you do. And then I do have a scar. You can't see. And I said I almost died in 21. I was on life support, multiple life support machines. They're like, okay, we need to do our pre-need plan right now.
Don't waste any time.
Yeah.
No.
So
Ruth Ann.
That is amazing.
well, thank you. There is a lot of divine intervention. There's more to it. We've drafted a book. It's not published yet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Some more things with that. But yeah, I had some pretty interesting dreams and hallucinations while I was under.
NDEs?
I'm sorry?
NDEs, near-death experiences or anything like that?
I saw the light.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw the light over here. My childhood Baptist minister was looking at me over here off a balcony. I laid him to rest a year before. I had just taken care of his wife. I could barely see her, but she was there. They weren't saying anything. So I'm having this conversation to myself in my head, because when you're in a coma, you can hear. And I do have memories and all that too. But I looked at that light and I'm like, if I go through that light, I can't come back through. And then the pictures of the boys and things that we were doing at the time flooded my mind. So hospice people have said I was pretty close. And I'm like, I'm not ready yet. I have more work to do. And I ended up in a pool of water swimming as hard as I could.
Wow.
So, and as far as being in a coma, they opened my eyes. You know how they check your eyes and all that? I didn't have peripheral vision. But I remember it looked like I was in a glass globe in rehab. But I could describe the people that were in the room. So even though you're in that, they had me in a medical coma, then they couldn't awaken me safely. So he likes to say they had the brain thing on me. And whenever he was around, it spiked up more.
Every time I was around, it spiked.
So as the child of somebody who has a plan in place, how much of a relief of that piece of it was that?
Knowing that there was a plan, if something were to happen, that we could follow was definitely valuable. I mean, it was a peace of mind knowing we had that and we could take care of other things at that time that needed to be taken care of. But just having that, feeling that, everything's going to be okay in the end, it was a big peace of mind knowing that. So,
yeah.
And you have those plans, and I'm sure you've talked about it. If you had elder law here, then you don't have to go through probate, because that's a mess.
Yeah.
And I see people that go through that. When you have the estate plan and trust, it's easier. And while I was in a coma for 38 days, in the hospital for 2 months, I mean, they wanted to take my phone away from me, and that's the only time they could, when I was in a coma. But because I've had my phone all the time, I was even like talking to people from my hospital bed and FaceTiming them to make sure they got it all and everything. Yeah, and doing work. They're like, we really need to take that away from you. No, I need to work. But they had that plan. And I have attorneys, I have trustees, but my employees and the bills they were paid. So business ran without me. So that was the busiest year we've ever been. And I said, well, I had a great vacation, because in my mind, I had some great drugs and I was having fun.
In the meantime, we were at the height of COVID in the funeral business.
And they didn't know if I was going to live or die.
Very
What an
busy.
incredible testimony.
Well, and they said, they were having discussions with my family that said that if I lived, I might be in a nursing home all my life. I might be blind. Yeah, we're still friends, personal friends with the doctors and the nurses and all that too. And I've done some videos and all that, and what I went through, so they could share that with other medical people, especially during that time.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Not to give up and let things work. Give it time to work.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I had great care. Everybody was positive. I swear there were angels that came and visited that were in like moon suits because it was COVID. One lady that did the IVs, by ultrasound or whatever, she had a moon suit on, and she came in and she said, you can survive. You can survive. This is what you asked for. You can live through this. When I couldn't walk, I couldn't even sit up. They'd sit me up for like a second, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go back down again. I had a lady come in. She goes, I broke both my ankles. I pulled myself along the floor, all that. You can do this. You can do this. And even doing the stander, the nurses are like, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And they're like, yay, you did it. So, and some of those people at Select Specialty, they actually took care of my dad. And they remembered the room I was in. So I guess I was pretty memorable. I don't know.
Yeah.
So book coming soon.
Book coming soon. Yeah.
You'll have to let us know so we can promote it for you here.
Thank you.
So when it comes out.
Yeah.
You have a great business. I mean, I just really like the two of you so much. I'm rooting for your business, and I'm so grateful that you're in our community, that you're here to help people walk through one of the most difficult, areas of their life that they'll probably never forget. It's one of those moments. But for the people that we're trying to serve, the elder community, there's just a lot of pitfalls out there for them, and finding a place that they can trust, people they can trust, is really hard. And so we want to really celebrate the good guys, good gals in the area that take care of our people, because that's why we're here. We want to make sure that you guys are successful, and we want to contribute to that in any way we can.
Well, and online, being an educator, there is a book on our website, and it's a bereavement pre-planning book, and it's very detailed and oriented. And my mom even said, after she read it, she goes, I feel like I've made funeral arrangements. But it talks about all sorts of things, and there's a pre-planning form in there too. They can also pre-plan online. They can call us. We've done plans online and
over the phone.
Never even meet the people in person.
No.
Wow.
Well, actually, I'm doing one right now, and the lady's in Cape Girardeau.
Wow.
So doing that for her. So technology's wonderful. But we really appreciate you having us on here.
Yes, thank you.
And talking about this.
We covered so much. There's only one question I had, and I'm saving it for the very end. Cherish Pets. I know we kind of talked about it briefly. Yes. Tell us how that got started.
So Cherish Pets Funeral Home and Crematory, it got started, well, I thought it was my idea. So then I shared it with my dad, and he goes, that was my idea. And I'm like, okay. So we started it because, one, we're animal owners too. So there are, well, each morning and afternoon when I'm walking 5 to 6 dogs. I'll just tell you. We have the area to do that. But it was started because, one, there are no standards or regulations for pet cremation or pet burials, except for like cemeteries. You're not supposed to do a pet burial in a human cemetery. You know, they have the separate ones and all that, except for the cremations. That's a little different when you put them in with the person in the casket. But it was started because these are our family members. I mean, we've had Missy dogs since they were kids. We had Buddy, that's another part of the story. He actually passed in 21. He had the same cancer I did.
Oh my gosh.
So that's in our book too, about animals maybe assuming our sickness and so we can live and they pass on. So he passed away. And so to celebrate them. So even whenever I was little, we had a cat pass away. We got a shoebox and we went and laid that cat next to a bush outside the funeral home, and we said a few words. And so they taught me, especially since I was little. And with them, they haven't had many animals pass away. But we, lately, some horses and Buddy passed away, and they laid them to rest. They were there. And some deer ones too. And Buddy and a horse, a mare that was our soul horse in a sense. She passed from boarding a foal. So she had some complications. And they're under a cherry blossom tree. So we always remember, especially every spring, what they're at. So we wanted to give honor and dignity to our pet family members, just like we do our humans. We have found overwhelmingly pet families grieve hard compared to the human families. It's hard. I did an interview just last week for a TV station, and the person, we took care of his dog, and he started in and he had to stop because it was so hard, for that to talk through it. But it's there. It's not just your animal passes away at the vet office. They take care of him, send him to a wholesale crematory place. They come back. You go to that vet office. They hand you a box. We don't do that. So even when we give those remains back to the families, just like we do on the human side, we light candles. They can spend a moment there. Everything that we do at Walnut Lawn, we do at Cherished Pets, except we don't embalm pets. But we can do burials. We do burials at home, too. So we have people to do that. We do large animal burials, but as far as large animal cremations, we're not set up to do that yet. We're retrofitted for that, and so it can be. But bankers kind of wanted to see what we did first before investing in that large retort and everything, too. So, but it is there. It's different. We're open Monday through Friday. We're regular office hours. People can just walk in 24/7. We're available. Just like on the human side, we can go to the vet offices. You just tell your vet that you want to use our funeral home, not their wholesale crematory place that they use. We have ID tracking. We have an e-commerce site. We have a portal that parents can go through and get messages and see where their pet is. So we know where they're at. They have a number, a QR code. And if you go on our Cherished Pets website, you'll see some of those pictures and everything as far as how we track them. But it's high quality. And when you call, you're going to get a live person, just like you do at Walnut Lawn Funeral Home. So that is much different, just servicing. I know when Buddy passed away, I was like, okay, at least I know grave diggers. Not everybody does. And actually, we were building a barn at the time, and there was an excavator out there, and the operator allowed him to dig the hole. And I have pictures of Michael and Gabriel laying Buddy to rest in there, too. So, and we could celebrate that. We just didn't throw Buddy away.
Yeah.
He's there. For those that want communal, we're setting up a communal, like they didn't want the remains back, but we're honoring those pets too by having a place at a cemetery. We're setting that up where those pets will be laid to rest there. People can still go and, and spend some time. there too. So they're just not thrown away either.
What a great service.
So it is, I did research all over the United States for about 6 to 8 years. Something interesting. So whenever we went to raise the sign, the Cherished Pets sign, we raised it the morning my dad passed away. We raised it 2 hours later, he passed away. So he was never able to step foot in there, but I showed him pictures, which he talked to all the hospice people about. It described the retort and everything, what it did. And then there's some things from his funeral that are there, like green plants, and then there's a stone there too. So he's he's there, his spirit's there. So
That is amazing.
being able to fulfill his dream too. So
Wow.
How can listeners reach you?
they can call us, 417-886-6127. That's the funeral home, Walnut Lawn Funeral Home. We have email info@walnutlawnfuneralhome.com. We have a website, walnutlawnfuneralhome.com. Or just come in. We're there Monday through Friday. We're available by phone 24/7. But we're there 8:30 to 5. We have the same hours that Cherished Pets does, but we're available. This morning we got a call. I got a call bright and early this morning, and the person apologized, and I said, "No, I'm here. I'm good." And then we had another call out of town. So one of our team members had to go on that call early this morning. So I'm used to not getting a whole lot of sleep most of the time, but I have good staff, so I get more sleep now.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. But
It looks like you got a good third generation coming
That's
in.
right.
To kind of help out as well.
yes.
Again, you have a great business, a great story.
Thank you.
Looking forward to hear more as that book comes out and all that. So thanks again for
Absolutely.
being here. We
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
And we'd love to stay connected. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and on Instagram at In Good Company Elder Care Podcast.
You can also find us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at IGC Pod, and on TikTok at IGC Elder Care Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to In Good Company Elder Care in Your Backyard. I'm John Ray, and I've been joined by my amazing co-host, Spencer Ernst. Special thanks to our executive producer, Alex Wallace, for helping bring this show to life. Until next time, take care, and remember, you are always in good company.